though he may not be the man some girls think of as handsome, to my heart he carries the key. Won't you tell him please to put on some speed, follow my lead? Oh, how I need someone who watch over me.
See if I can kick one of these legs.
I hear all these cheerful sounds coming from out there, and but it is time to start our program. For those of you who don't know, I'm Geni and Judy's daddy, and it's my privilege tonight to welcome you to this function. And I can say that we have quite an audience here tonight. It's quite impressive to know where all we have people from. We have people here from 4 corners of the country. Literally. Florida, New Jersey, Oregon, Southern California, and a lot of California, North Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and that's just the ones I know about. And of course, a lot of people from all over California. And we welcome you. My wife Donna is very happy to have both of her sisters here. Judy is very happy to have her Uncle Dode and several cousins here. And we all are happy to have all of you here. So, welcome. Also, I want to say a word this evening about the appreciation we have for the support that you have shown to Geni during her journey and to her family. Your prayers have meant so much. They have lifted us up and lightened the burden. And in Geni's case, there were some special things that I want to mention. One of her cousins is an artist, and she did an original card every week tracing Geni's journey. And there's a montage of some of them, actually pictures of them out on the table across the way from where you signed in. Take a look at them if you didn't see them coming in. They're worth looking at. Also there are pictures of Geni's well. And that was a high point in her experience because we had planned to go to India on a mission trip, and we're not able to do that, of course, and so we simply donated the cost of that, and it ended up being a water well in India. And that has been a source of satisfaction. And what's special is that it was completed while she was still alive, and she knew that she was providing water for a village over there somewhere. Then you probably saw, if you were looking around over there, the crane project. I don't know everything I should know, obviously, about the crane project, but it's a Japanese tradition that if you fold 1,000 cranes, that good of some kind or several kinds will come from that. And so a lot of people were folding cranes. They had a special session one day at Starbucks where people came and folded cranes. And if you look at the pictures that are on display over there, you'll see a lot of people that are Starbucks customers, and even the employees there folding cranes. So there were those special things along the way that we very much appreciate. And again, thank you so much for the love and support that all of you have given to our family. Thank you just from the bottom of our hearts.
Good evening. There is a girl. She is wise and wary of flames, but still she knows she will survive the fire. You see, life scorches sometimes, but she has been a phoenix before, and every time she burns to ashes, she knows exactly how she'll rise again.
Amen.
Let us bow our heads for prayer. Dear Jesus, today we gather to remember and celebrate our beloved Geni. We thank you for all the hearts in attendance and for those who have sent their love from around the country and perhaps around the world. Bless our time as we rejoice in knowing the lives Geni touched, the memories we share, and the indelible mark that she has left on us all. We hold tight to your promise that we will see Geni again, where there is no more sorrow, death, or pain. We thank you for the time that we had Geni in our lives. This is our prayer. In your loving name we pray. Amen.
It's so nice to see all of you here. You know what you look like to me? You look like friends.
Amen.
And what would the world be without friends? We all need them, don't we? You are friends. So good to see you. Well, it says on the program that I'm going to do a reading. It's a very, very short one. It's just a few lines that Geni really appreciated. So I would like to share a favorite poet of Geni's, who was one of the most beautiful, kind, and courageous people that I've ever known in my whole life. And this is what it says. It says, I said to the man who stood at the gate of the year, give me a light that I may tread safely into the unknown. And he replied, go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be to you better than life and safer than a known way. This meant so much to Geni. So I recommend these words for each one of you in Geni's name. Thank you.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my
I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be in front of you. I'm honored to be here for our friends. My name is Bridget Loran, and I didn't get to know this friend as well as I wanted to. I'm going to share a poem. The poem is called We Were to Be Good Friends. We were to be good friends, Geni and I. She was a flower, an iris perhaps, standing tall and strong. How exciting it was to meet her, Geni, with her colorful petals, her sweet laughter caught up in the morning's brew of the clattering coffee shop, a cup of coffee, a meal for a friend, her generous nature. Everyone was invited to her parties. We were to be good friends. Finally, an invitation. Side by side with her sister, she crafted details of December gatherings. Geni delighted in the friendly air of conversation, of celebration. Current events stood in the background. The impact of climate change was debated as the soft breeze grew stronger. The sturdy stalk of Geni's spirit held as she heard the words from the oncologist. Oh, fearful future. No. Geni commanded the new look forced upon her. The shaved head, thinner frame, paler complexion did not cloak her identity. I admired her all the more. The friendship I had hoped for fell further away. A cup of joy meeting was said, nothing big. Just sit, drink, chat, love. It never happened. Living had become a chore. She moved into a new yet temporary location. Curled cats and folded cranes awaited alone in the small house. Dark gusts had teased her back and forth. Exhaustion had become her companion. Hope, like fallen petals, had blown to the ground. Waiting in the last hours of May, we were obedient children while life and death agreed. Ascending prayers swirled, tears dropped, a friend biked by. Time paused, but not for the family outside my window. We were to be good friends. Geni, did you even know? Perhaps later. Thank you.
Just a second. I have to take another breath.
It's okay.
Thank you guys all for being here tonight. Geni would have loved this. Her dearest friends in a beautiful setting. What she wanted good food, good music, and for everybody to have fun. How are we doing so far? What she would have hated about this was being the center of attention. She would have said something like, "You people talk amongst yourselves." And then we'd find her sitting on the sidelines with some fellow introvert like Dennis or Kirsten in regaling some ultra-detailed, hysterically funny story while the rest of us chit-chatted. So the story goes, Geni was born on a cold November morning in Hinsdale, Illinois. My dad was an administrator at the hospital where she was born. And, back in that era, the dads had very little to do with childbirth, so he dropped my mom off at labor and delivery when she went into labor, and later went back to see, to the nursery window to view his daughter. My mom had prepared him, that babies are wrinkled and cone-headed and sometimes have forceps bruises and all these sorts of things so that he wouldn't be disappointed. After seeing her, he went back to his office and he told everybody, he said, "She is just beautiful. She's not like an ordinary baby." Boy, was that an understatement. She had my folks for about 15 and a half months solely to herself. And then I came along. I hear she wasn't that thrilled. But soon I became her educational pursuit, and when I got old enough to learn to talk, she would sit for hours trying to teach me to articulate. I guess F was a hard letter for me, and so she would say, feet. And I would say, seat. At some point she must have been successful because I can use my F words now. So. But it wasn't just articulation that I learned from Geni. Geni saw the world from just a little bit different angle than anybody else I know. And she taught me a lot. She always taught me a new way of looking at things, and pushed me to consider a different perspective and to grow. So after we lived in Hinsdale, we moved to Guam and lived on a little island that had been blown over by a couple typhoons, and I don't remember any of that, so I'm not going into any of those details. But then we moved to Singapore. In Singapore, that was where we really had our childhood. And it was such an interesting place. If any of you are familiar with third culture kids, we were it. We had a Okie mom and a Norwegian dad, and lived in a blended Asian culture of Singapore that's basically a country of immigrants. And there was no way you could live in that environment and not learn to recognize that people are just people. And that really the humanness of our experience is exactly the same for every single one of us. Geni always said, we all have the same number of nerve endings. And I think that pretty well describes it. We left Singapore and came, home to the U.S., which was not home to either of us, but lived in Michigan for a few years, saw snow for the first time. Our parents both finished their graduate degrees there, and then soon after that we moved to Southern California in the middle of our 7th and 8th grade years, but I'm not going there anyway. Geni attended high school in Riverside. During high school, she was a reader for one of the junior high language arts teachers, and then worked in the business office. She served on student council and was a class officer and co-edited the yearbook her senior year. She was always involved. And then after our senior year, our folks moved to Thousand Oaks, and but Geni returned to Riverside to go to college and live in the dorm. Initially, Geni started out taking prerequisites for physical therapy, and then got distracted with the idea of taking medicine. But that didn't stick for very long, but at that time she had moved to upper division biology classes, which she was really enjoying. So she decided to continue with her biology degree. So she graduated with a BA in biology and then finished her teaching credential, and was prepared to teach junior high and high school science and math. She then left on her big adventure to Kansas. I have to sit down. She left on her big adventure to Kansas, and she was going to go be independent. And after a couple of years there, as a first and second year teacher, making almost no money, living in a subterranean apartment basement, she got pretty cold and homesick, and then had an opportunity to go to San Diego and teach at San Diego Adventist Academy, which she did, and she just really loved that. But she realized, as she worked with some amazing teachers, some of who are here tonight, that she just wasn't a lifer. That just wasn't something she wanted to do forever. And so we were kind of surprised. We knew she wanted to go back to school, but we were kind of surprised to hear that she was studying for the LSAT and applying to law school. But she went to law school up at Lewis and Clark in Portland, and just enjoyed that thoroughly. She loved being a student, would still be a student if she could. And after she finished law school, she was toying with doing patent law and biotechnology and lots of different things, and wasn't really ready to, didn't know if she wanted to practice law or regular law or what she was going to do. So she came down, and I lived in Fresno, so she came and moved to Fresno, and went to Fresno State and did a biotechnology certificate, a graduate program in biotechnology. When she finished that, she was pretty sure she didn't want a patent life, so she decided not to pursue that anymore. And then she was just a little bit kind of lost and kind of at loose ends. She didn't really know if she wanted to practice law at all or what she wanted to do. So she went out, she was doing substitute teaching, and she went out and signed up with a temp agency and took an assignment at McCormick Barstow as a temporary legal secretary. And then, I don't know, from there to being a partner, I'm not exactly sure. It was a long and winding path, and there may be different versions, but she basically, after being a legal secretary for a while, she's like, well, if I'm going to look at a law firm, I might as well be an attorney and use my education. So she studied for the California bar and passed that, and then by hook or by crook got hired as an attorney, and worked there for, I think, 18 years, like a long time anyway, in coverage department. And I don't think that was ever her calling, but she enjoyed the people she worked with, and she loved research and writing. Moved to another bigger apartment, and then bought a little house, and then bought a big house, and then decided to sell her big house, and she sold it, but in escrow it burned, and then she got it repaired, and then she sold it again, and she had quite the trail, and ended up back in her little house where she started out, that she always called the house where love lives. Geni and I had the privilege of living in the same town within a mile of each other for 25 years. And I think even for sisters, we had a special bond. We supported each other, we helped each other, we listened to each other, we pushed each other. We fought sometimes, a lot, and and then we made up. And you know, in many ways, we kind of functioned as life partners. During that time, I got married, I got divorced. She dated this and that person, you know. But we always came back to the sisters and really knew that we were there for each other. We walked every morning to Starbucks for probably the last 15 years, pretty consistently. And every day we appreciated the fact that we lived close to each other and that we had each other as best friends and siblings. Geni was a classic introvert, even before it was popular. She wasn't shy, not at all. She was actually very bold. And she loved human connection. It was just people she couldn't stand. People exhausted her, you know, too much, too many, too much was just too much, and a little bit was too much. I think when she took Susan Cain's, in Susan Cain's book, Quiet, about introverts, when she took the quiz, I think she got 22 out of 20 or something. And her favorite thing was to be home by herself and know that she didn't have any social obligation pending. Some of her other favorite things were Amazon, which meant she didn't have to go to any stores and interact with people. Well, shopping and binge watching. She loved live music. One of her other favorite things was a really good bowel movement. Now I know my mother's probably just having a cow that I said that. But I know that at least half of you she's had the bowel health conversation. So I don't feel like it's inappropriate. I think she has every model of squatty potty available. She loved precise vocabulary, including a little expletive here and there when it was the right word. And she loved cats. Some of her least favorite things were unsolicited advice and unsolicited advice and unsolicited advice followed by mansplaining. She wasn't fond of chit-chat. She really hated time pressure. She didn't like being compared to Georgette, Ted Baxter's girlfriend on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which she was a lot. And she didn't really like red exclamation emails, especially on holiday weekends. She was funny. I mean, she was like deeply funny. She had like the perfect combination of wit and vulnerability and vocabulary and timing. Her sense of humor is the thing I'm gonna miss the most. And I'll never be as funny as I was with Geni. We laughed more than we fought or cried, which was a lot. It was no secret that Geni struggled with her weight. She was either gaining or losing almost all the time. She was so thrilled when she found the program Bright Line Eating that really addressed food as an addiction, and she addressed the nature of food issues that resonated with her. For 4 years, she was never so happy as when she was doing Bright Line Eating and really found peace around food and eating and weight. But the main benefit of that program was the personal growth that came along with it. And in many ways, it was that got Geni ready to die. That Friday afternoon, after kind of a crazy medical day of rapidly developing symptoms and everything not really fitting together, when we sat with Dr. Higa at the heart hospital, and he took her hand and he told her that she had a mass on her pancreas. And after he described the anatomy of it and the entanglement of it and the size of it, there was no doubt in our minds of its inevitable course. And she looked at him, and with true serenity and maybe a little relief, she simply said, "Okay." And that was her attitude for the rest of the 17 months that she lived. Well, not about everything, but about her journey. It was okay. She took each step as it came with acceptance and courage and faith. She made the most of her opportunity to live life, even if it was for a short time, on her own terms. She loved being away from the stress of working. And she loved puttering around her house and coloring and getting and staying organized without time pressure. And she loved connecting with all of you when her energy allowed for it between treatments. We had pop-up parties, and we attended concerts, and we threw one final Christmas party. But Geni didn't really have a bucket list. Her bucket list mostly included just being and just being. Just sitting with her cats, listening to audibles, listening to the rain. The last week before she died, she was in a care home. She was in a corner room, windows on two sides. She had the windows open the whole time. And it was unseasonably rainy for Fresno in late May. Several times she said, as she laid there and listened to the rain, she said, "I think it's raining now, just so I can enjoy it before I go." On Wednesday afternoon, May 29, about 5:30, with our dear mom by her side, Geni went to sleep and was finally at peace.
Thank you, Judy. That was powerful. You know, there's only one person in the world who could give that tribute, and that's you. So thank you for having the courage to share that with us this evening. There's a proverb that says that as long as a person's name is spoken, that person continues to live. So Geni may not be with us in person this evening, but we know that her spirit here is with us alive and well because her name is being spoken. We're remembering her. That's one of the really powerful functions of a memorial time like this. To remember, to grieve and to remember. Because that's how we keep a person's memory alive. And so we want to take some time now to have some, what we call some tales and some tributes. A couple people have prepared remarks. A couple of Geni's friends have prepared remarks that they're going to share with you now. And then after that, we're going to open it up for any of you who would like to share a tribute. So if you might be thinking in the next couple minutes, if you have a memory, if you have a story, or just a way that Geni impacted your life, we would invite you to share that after Geni's friends have spoken. So the first of Geni's friends is the Reverend Edie Holton, who's come all the way from the East Coast. After Edie will be Kirsten Truman, a good friend of Geni's from the Portland Law School days. And then the third friend to speak will be Eileen Rizzo Acosta. So we'll begin with Edie.
I don't remember the exact date that I met my wonderful friend, Geni Krogstad, but I will never forget our first meeting. It was in September 1982, and part of what made that day so memorable is that I had just driven by myself from Ardmore, Oklahoma, to Riverside, California, and I was exhausted. I arrived at the girls' dormitory at La Sierra University, and immediately upon being shown to the room I would be sharing with my roommate, I met the two women with whom we would be sharing a bathroom. And those two women just happened to be Geni and Judy Krogstad. As I'm sure you can imagine, after such a long drive, I was not exactly making the type of first impression for which one would want to be remembered for the rest of her life. And yet, in that moment, the rarest of things happened. We immediately became friends. And what a gift that friendship has been. Of course, one cannot talk about Geni without also mentioning the rest of her family. Part of what made Geni the incredible person that she was is this amazing family and their devotion to each other. It wasn't very long after becoming friends with Geni and Judy that I met Mama Donna and Kroggy, and from the beginning felt welcomed and embraced by them. I quickly made myself a member of their family, and they have basically been stuck with me ever since. I cannot begin to recount all the holidays, birthdays, graduations, momentous occasions, weekend adventures, and simple, ordinary days that I have spent with this family. And when one considers that after Geni and I graduated from college together and embarked on our careers, that we never lived in the same city, it really is quite remarkable how we stayed so closely connected throughout the decades. And I know that it is because this is a family that values connection and cherishes the friendships that they nurture. So coming from this loving family, Geni was a person who knew how to be a good friend and how to love. She was generous with her affection and lavish in her praise. She always seemed to think that whatever I was doing was amazing and that I was the perfect person to be doing it. Regardless of where I was or what I was doing on my circuitous journey through life, Geni was always one of my biggest cheerleaders and made me feel like I could do anything. She made me feel special. And because I admired her so much, I felt a sense of pride in knowing she was my friend. In every conversation that I ever had with Geni, I felt valued and heard, and that is a rare gift indeed. I have a plethora of treasured memories of Geni, and I feel so incredibly blessed that I got to share in so many wonderful experiences with her. One of my favorite memories, however, is how we would always end our emails and eventually our text messages to each other. Whoever wrote the first message would, of course, end with, "I love you." Then the other one would respond, "I love you more," which would get the response of, "I love you more than that," until finally one of us would get the last word of, "I love you the most." Of all the wonderful times that we had together, I can only recall one area of conflict that I had with Geni. I did something one time that caused my friend intense pain. And I am not sure that she ever really forgave me for it. And it had to do with these shoes that I'm wearing tonight. You see, when Judy got married, Geni, Nurse Pam, and I were her bridesmaids, and Judy gave me the very important task of picking out the shoes we were to wear for her wedding. Now, admittedly, I do not have a lot of skills, but I do know how to shop for shoes. And this was something for which I was and remain preeminently qualified. Geni, however, being very familiar with my footwear collection, was dubious about this assignment. So you can imagine how thrilled I was when I found these shoes that not only went beautifully with our dresses, but were, in my opinion, quite practical as well. Geni thought that they were instruments of torture. And although I tried to assure her that eventually everything from her ankles down would go numb and she wouldn't feel anything anyway, she remained unconvinced. And as I said before, I am not entirely sure that she ever fully forgave me for the pain and suffering she endured on that day. And so I wear these shoes tonight in honor and memory of Geni. Geni Krogstad was a beautiful person with an enormous heart, strong intellect, courageous spirit, deep integrity, quick wit, and a radiant smile. She was warm, loving, compassionate, smart, and very funny. She felt the pain of the world and was easily moved to tears. She also saw the humor in so many situations and had an infectious laugh. She knew joy and she knew sadness. She cared deeply for all creatures, human and otherwise, and she was a fierce defender of those who are marginalized. She yearned to alleviate suffering, and she could not tolerate any type of discrimination, bigotry, bullying, or opportunistic behavior. She could focus in with laser beam accuracy on core issues and was able to precisely and articulately call out hypocrisy and inauthenticity. Being with Geni meant that you did not have the luxury of simply wading in shallow water, since she would compel you to take a deeper dive and really examine your own thoughts and beliefs on a subject. It is nearly impossible for me to believe that my friend has died. I just want to have one more conversation, share one more laugh, go on one more adventure, watch one more ridiculous movie together, share one more meal, attend one more concert, give her one more hug, and tell her that I love her just one more time. I have so much pride and admiration for my friend, and I am eternally grateful that our paths crossed and I got to have her in my life for so many years. Geni lived her life and faced her death with grace, dignity, and humor. She made this world a better place and eased the suffering of many. Our planet needs more people like Geni Krogstad, And we can honor her legacy by each one of us committing to making our corner of the world a more loving and compassionate place. Thank you, Geni, for being you and for inspiring me to become a better person. I will always love you and hope to live my life in a way that would make you proud. Rest in peace, my sweet friend.
I became friends with Geni through my husband. Rob and Geni met on the first day of law school and became fast friends. It didn't take long before she and I became close too. That's going back 28 years now. Rob and I managed to stay in touch with Geni for all these years. She was truly one of a kind. She was the dearest and truest of friends. We might not have seen each other for a year, but we could pick right up where we had left off the last time. It was so easy and natural hanging out like family. I loved Geni's sense of humor and her stories. Her tales would be peppered with colorful expressions like skinny mini, acronyms such as BMEO, bawled my eyes out, and abbreviations. For instance, cucumbers were Geni's fave. She could have me in stitches about going to the store to get a bottle of shampoo or taking the garbage out. She would notice things, a gesture or a comment, for example, and make an observation. She'd identify some universal truth, usually about the human condition, and it would be so funny and spot on. This was Geni's signature. Rob and I were fortunate enough to see Geni a number of times this past year. What was remarkable was Geni's ability to see the best in the situation. She would say that when she was feeling okay, she was really quite content. She loved being in her cozy home, surrounded by her beloved cats. She enjoyed relaxing on her bed, listening to books on tape, especially when Mama Donna would join her. And she relished getting her daily visit from Judy, bringing Geni the latest gossip and her drink of choice from Starbucks, of course. One of the things that meant the most to Geni in the last phase of her life was her association with Bright Line Eating, or BLE. She loved the community she found with this movement and felt blessed to do it with Judy, whom she considered the best BLE buddy in the world. She taught Rob and me a concept she had learned through this work called sisu. Sisu, a Finnish word, translates as someone who displays strength and determination in the face of adversity, somebody who has tenacity and resilience and grit. Geni intimated that this idea was something she really identified with, and I can certainly see why. When I think of Geni, I think of her indomitable spirit. This was Geni's essence. And though her ancestors are Norwegian, I'm quite sure those Scandinavian winds blew that DNA right on over from across the sea. I will miss Geni dearly. She was a soul sister to me. It was one of the great gifts of my life to have had her as a friend. She is an inspiration, and I will carry her with me always. And what comes as a comfort is to know that as time passes, I'll be able to visit Judy and reminisce. It will be a gift to share memories, look at pictures, tell stories, and laugh and cry. And you know how I think Geni would respond to us doing that? It would make her happy. And she'd say something like, "That's perfect." No, she'd say, "That's perf." Thank you.
A little shorter. I didn't have the privilege of knowing Geni for very long. Like many of you, I'm a little jealous as I hear your stories. But for the time that I knew her, it was such a beautiful, priceless gift.
I'm a kindred spirit to Geni, an introvert, a math teacher, was on the mission field myself. And I first met Geni at the most improbable place for a person like me to be, on the campaign trail. In 2018, I took a step out of my comfort zone to run for California State Assembly. And on a meet and greet, I met Judy and Geni there for the first time. I remember her smile, and I quickly understood that she was a fan of mine. She knew my story and my heart and the purpose of me running without me even having to share it with her. It's so true that Geni hated discrimination, and her and I shared that passion. And my quest for equality was something that she could identify with, was something that she could come behind. And I'm so grateful for her being in my life. I remember her telling me in one of our talks on her bed with her cat not too far away, how she wished that we hadn't met when she was sick. Because our very short journey always had that cloud over it, that this day would come. And I would hate to think about that. And I would wonder, how do you find a kindred spirit and only have them in your life for a very short time? That seems unfair. But what if I had never met her? That would have been a worse thing for me. One of my last times with Geni, we were talking about the speech that I would give for Fresno State for their Gender and Race Equality Conference, and they had asked me to be a keynote. And I remember just having that conversation of how I was preparing and what kind of things I wanted to say, and she wanted so much to be there, and I really felt like she was. I didn't win my bid for state assembly, but I promised Geni that it wouldn't be my last run. She will always be my biggest supporter. And I just wanted to share these words from a song that reminded me of her. Angel, you're bulletproof. You're so high. You see the truth. And I'm still all about pretending how I could ever be like you. Thank you.
Okay, so now we would like to open it up to any of you who have a short memory, a tribute, something that you would like to share with us about your experience with Geni. So we would invite you at this time, if you'd like to share with us, if you go ahead and get out of your seat, and if you would come down here to the front, to the right side of the stage. I know it's a little bit nerve-wracking, we've got a lot of people here, but it's really important, especially for the family, for Geni's family, to be able to hear your experiences of Geni. So if you go ahead and be so bold as to come up at this time, we would appreciate it.
I was invited to the holiday party. So I was hanging out with Brooke and her friend Matt over there. We're hanging out by the M&Ms, the M&M glass. And I was like, this is a nice party. I don't think I'm dressed up nice enough for this place. So after the party, I went up to Geni. I said, if this party was as nice as I thought it was, I would have straightened out my hair. I wouldn't have wore a hat. And she just started laughing. And it was amazing to me because I was just tagging along. And Brooke would always tell me, she always asked about me when they went to Starbucks. And her sister remembered me right now. And I was just thinking, I was talking to Matt about this after the party. I said, if everyone was nice as Geni, the world would be a better place. So it was really flattering too. My girlfriend told me she invited me to what was she having? Some animal rescue thing? And I was reading the pamphlet, and she's into TNR. That's when you take stray cats and you fix them and release them. And not many people know about that. And such a good person, you know. You're thinking about those smaller than you. So the world would be a better place if everyone was like her. And I'm always going to remember her for that. And I think she wanted me to enjoy this ice cream.
Well, we have been like family with the Krogstads. We've only known them about 50 years. We lived in the same place a number of times. We worked together in the same place a number of times. We went to graduate school together with Art and Donna. And through the years, I told someone we've had more Christmas and Thanksgiving celebrations with the Krogstads than we have with our own family. And so we consider them as family. Couple high points. A few years ago, Geni bought a house and she needed to have a garage built. So Art recruited 3 of his buddies, and we were all in our mid or late 70s. And we showed up down there, and the whole neighborhood said, "These old guys are going to build that garage?" And a week later, they were astonished to see the garage was up and almost finished. And we told the folk, well, if you combine the years that the 4 couples of us had been married, I think it came up to 213. We had all been married more than 50 years. So you can see why they thought we'd never get the job done. That was a sort of a high point and a fun time. Another high point of our life was when Geni celebrated her 50th birthday. We went with the Krogstads to Singapore and relived the days that we were in Singapore together. And I think that was one of the high points of Geni's life.
Thanks for inviting me up. I'm Rob Truman. You met my wife Kirsten a minute ago. Judy's right. Geni, I think, invented the word mansplaining, and I think she would say, Rob, Kirsten had her chance. You don't have to be here. But nevertheless, I have a couple of law school stories to tell. We did meet the first day of law school. I'm from the East Coast. I showed up from law school in Portland, Oregon in my student tie, not getting the message that it's the Northwest, and Birkenstocks were the order of the day. Geni didn't hold that against me because she's Geni, and we became friends, though she did have fun later for the rest of our lives together, making fun of me for that memorable mistake. She was incredible to go to law school with. Law school, as many as you know, is the type of place that is like a check of your ethics and a check of your confidence, a test of your confidence. For all of us, not so much for Geni. I mean, she had her moments, of course, but really, she could see through the egos that abound in these places, and always made it all make sense to me in a way that I never quite realized, including the person who turned out to be both of us. We both went to too much school, and we both realized that this was the worst professor we ever had. And he would stand and lecture, and he was like Hamlet holding a skull, if I have my Shakespeare right. And he'd be talking to it, except there wasn't a skull, it was a can of Sprite every class. And Geni would just give me one look, and it would be all over. And she'd give it every single time. She was an amazing student, amazing person to go to law school with, who just loved it for the education alone, which you cannot say about everyone. It was this perspective that I've taken with me my whole life. After law school, it was time to study for the bar exam. We did the Oregon bar, and then Geni somehow came down, Geni, came down here and did the California bar, which is even more difficult. The way we got through it is every afternoon, in the mornings we'd study, in theory I'd study, and then in the afternoon I'd go over to her and her roommate Cindy's apartment, and Geni would cook scones, her incredible scones, and we would study for a set amount of time, 5 minutes to an hour, and then we would have a scone break, I have since joined the Team BLE, thanks to Judy and Geni, and I may not have a scone again anytime soon, or bread at all, but I don't mind not having scones because I've had Geni's scones, which were astounding. Then we would study a good amount, and then we would watch General Hospital. This was the Luke and Laura era, which Geni also hooked me on. And then we would have Ben & Jerry's ice cream, which all worked out. So somehow we made it through the bar despite our study habits. Afterwards, she came down here. I went to Kansas to school, and Geni invited me, and I was just remembering this, we were just talking about it with Uncle Dode, that she invited me when she was going to visit her grandparents, and many of your grandparents and relatives in Oklahoma. And so I drove down. I've been on the coast. I've never been in a place like Oklahoma before, and I got to stay overnight at in your grandparents' house. It couldn't have been more welcoming, though there were many side questions, I understand, about why this married guy is coming over to meet Geni in Oklahoma. It was wonderful. It turns out I apparently met Uncle Dode and Aunt Barbara at the time. But more importantly, I discovered this wonderful world of all the things you can make out of corn, which Geni hadn't quite in all her stories, because she told some wonderful stories, of course, about her life, and this really helped to understand and appreciate, but she hadn't mentioned corn, and so when I brought up this, I think it was rehydrated corn, a food I've never met before, it led to a conversation about all the many uses of corn, and Geni couldn't have been happier that I was exposed to this. Geni, as Kirsten mentioned, we saw her sometimes once a year, hopefully many times more. We'd always stop, or try to always stop on our way down for Christmas to visit our family. And she got to know our kids. We have a daughter who's an introverted scientist, and a son who is the world's most outgoing theatrical kid. He's studying theater right now. And Geni loved and appreciated them both. They'd only see each other once or twice a year, and Geni is like an aunt to them, and they loved getting to be with her. And she would just listen, as we've heard so many times. She would just listen to them from when they were small children all the way to now they're in college, and it's so unique in their lives because people don't do that like Geni could do that. When we were in law school, and my story's going long, when we were in law school, apparently Kirsten and I didn't have a lot of furniture, so Geni and Cindy would come over to watch movies, and we'd sit on our bed, and we'd watch Apocalypse Now for some reason stood out, and a number of other movies, and they were memorable nights. We had a great time. And then in our last two visits, we got to sit on the bed with Judy and spend, I mean, how blessed, we got to spend hours with her not that long ago. She's that kind of person. She's like a sister. She was a sister, my third sister, and I think she's moved past my brother, actually, in the ranking. So this is a wonderful, thank you all.
So get this thing up. Hi, I have the pleasure of being Geni's partner. I got to know Geni about 19 years ago. I met her in the firm parking lot. I knew she was the secretary that was going to be a lawyer, and I struck up a conversation with her, and we worked on different floors. She was on the, I think it was the third floor at the time, I was on the fourth, and I'd only see Geni when I'd come into the parking lot, or if I was leaving the parking lot. Maybe once a week, maybe once a month. I was on the road a lot, but every time I saw her, we'd talk. 5 minutes, sometimes a half hour. Sometimes it was something funny. Sometimes she was talking to me about things that needed to be changed around the office. But when she did that, it was never for Geni. Geni wasn't in it for the money. She wasn't in it for the glory. Geni cared about everybody. Staff in her office knew it. They loved her. When Geni went to bat for someone, you knew there were no ulterior motives. You knew she had something she thought was important, and she wanted to bring it to our attention so that we could do something about it. And that's how I got to know her. But it was more professional. And then the ice was broken, and we started a friendship. And I turned 40 years old, and I walk into my office, and there is a box. I mean, 36 inches long, 24 inches wide, 24 inches tall, big bow, beautiful wrapping paper. I open it up, and it's the biggest box of adult diapers you have ever seen. So I go downstairs, I walk into her office, and she starts crying. She's laughing so hard. And I keep telling her, you know what? You know, when you turn 40, it's coming back in spades. She goes, I hate to break it to you, buddy. I turned 40 last month. It's going to be a long time before I turn 50. So we start laughing some more and talking, and then she just comes after me. She says, yeah, you know, I was thinking, you bought that sports car, and you're kind of going through a crisis and everything. You're single. So, you know, if you don't need them now, those young girls you're probably going to be dating in a couple of months, they're going to need them. And we couldn't stop laughing, and it was the funniest. We were probably 40 minutes of just crying and laughing and having a great time. And after that, every time I saw Geni, I felt like I could talk to her. And as the years passed and I had kids and I had less time to talk to her, or I'd be on the road, it seemed like I wouldn't see her but once a month. In the last 17 months, I haven't seen her in the parking lot. The parking lot isn't as bright as it once was. It isn't inspiring as it once was. It isn't as finger wagging as it once was. Nor is our office. But you know, we will never forget our Geni. Thank you.
I want to give the opportunity if there's anybody else who would like to share a memory or a tribute.
As we were sitting there listening, wow, there's
so many stories.
Yeah, that we could share, but I think you want to share one of the recent stories.
Am I allowed to? Okay.
Well, let me say this first before you share that story. Because that's one toward the end. But a few years ago, some of our kids from our church went on a mission trip, and Geni was very supportive of that. And that was around the time she was selling the big house. And she was downsizing and getting rid of things. And one of the things that she was getting rid of was her dining room table. And she sold it to our family. And I tell you, our kids, first of all, our oldest son, he spent a lot of time in his room, but when we got that table, he would come downstairs and he would spread all his stuff out and he would sit at that table. And then they started inviting their friends over, and they played these weird, geeky games that, I think they're geeky, at the table, and they spend hours and hours sitting around this table laughing and having fun. And I would tell Geni about how much fun our family was having with her table. And she would just laugh, and she said, that gives me so much joy. She said, I hated getting rid of my table, but I am so glad that you guys are having so much fun with it. And there's also a story about how the table got bought and how you laid across it because it was the last one at Costco. and you were lying across it until she could get there and get the table purchased. Because I don't know who said that earlier.
Because that's what sisters do.
Right. And so But someone said earlier that Geni has had a lot of stories, and there was a story with everything, and there was a story with that table. And so it has brought us a lot of joy. And I know that would make Geni, it did make Geni happy to know that. So I wanted to share.
So we love Geni, truly. I mean, from the bottom of our heart, and anything that she wanted, she could get. So recently, in the last week of her life, she was in the care home, and the care home didn't have, so this is a very personal story, so I'm sorry if it gets too TMI, but and in the evenings, it's about love, yes, and about yes. In the evening, they didn't have much help, and she needed help to go potty, and have a BM, yes. So Judy calls and says, "Hey, can you help?" And of course, no problem. So, but before I could help, and I'm not sure if any of you have ever helped Geni was very specific. This is exactly what you have to do. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And did you get it, Leo? Okay, let me repeat it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very specific. And then Judy goes like, Leo, and you really have to hold her tight. So I follow the instructions, do what I'm supposed to do. After everything is done, I come back and reverse the process. And then Geni goes like, you really listen to Judy, right? So a little bit too much. She didn't say that, but that was the message. And in the process, and I can say with love, I took crap from Geni. So, thank you. It's been a pleasure to know Geni and to love her.
One more thing. You are known by the type of people that you have around you. And Geni's heart was big. And you guys are evidence of the type of heart that Geni had.
I've been knowing Geni for 23 years this month. That's when my daughter was born, and I met her sister who cared for my baby. And Geni has been, she has been a consistent friend. I always told her that I was her extrovert drama friend because she was an introvert. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, I think I'm a convert now. But I have been in social work for most of my career. And so she knows that I was getting super burnt out, this Care Bear spirit. So I can go crash her couch and like be a big baby. I just have to get used to loving cats because she wasn't going to compromise it. Well, she would try to put her cats up, but then after a while I was like, okay, she loved cats, I need to get over it. And she would always welcome me in. I don't even know how to put it in words what she represented for my family, because I was super young as a mother, not sure what direction I was going to go in my life. But she was a mentor. She was so funny in her own way. A no-nonsense lawyer, because she helped me in a sticky case that was just really crazy. But when I saw her in her element of being an attorney, I was like, whoa, is that Geni? Like, you gotta ask somebody. She knows what she's doing in her element. So I just love her. Like, at the end of the day, she was a servant. We had servant hearts. And she demonstrated to me in any aspect of your life that you don't have to compromise your walk with Christ. You don't have to, you know, be a part of the get-along gang for this life attainment stuff. And through all of this, I have, you know, started a nonprofit to serve youth, to teach them how to have entrepreneurship skills early on. Geni never wanted people to know that she was a silent donor. Her legacy lives on. I cannot tell you how many entrepreneur youngsters that are out here in this community because of I always get y'all names interchangeable because they're like twins. I have twin sisters. I always think y'all's twins. But her legacy live on because towards the end, she gave permission for me to share with the parents that she donated. There's young engineers, science, technology, children that's now young adults and youth because of her contribution and belief in everything that I did. Amen. I was the first to graduate college. I wouldn't speak with her for months because everybody's busy. I would look up and she would be at the graduation. Any milestone in my life, she was there. She is a rarity. So I know her legacy live on. The parents that had never met her, they know what she represented for her kids. She was about ministry. She was about work. She was about the real work. And so me being 47 and towards the end, she and I were at the same oncology clinic for her treatment, and I had treatment in the chair next to her. We laughed. We were like, we got to stop meeting like this and get better. Like, this is not good. Like, you know, years later. But she really told me, she was like, you know, I feel sorry for us because we're here with all of the drama of the world. So to me, and really, really understand, there's countless young people that are doing very, very well because of her donations and her commitment to them. Thank you.
Life has taught me this. Every day is new. And if anything is true, all that matters when we're through is how we love. Faced with what we lack, some things fall apart, but from the ashes new dreams start. And all that matters to the heart is how we love. How we love. How we love. From the smallest act of kindness, in a word, a smile, a touch. In spite of our mistakes, chances come again. If we lose or if we win, all that matters in the end is how we love. I will not forget your kindness when I needed it so much. Sometimes we forget, trying to be so strong in this world of right and wrong. All that matters when we're gone, all that mattered all along, all we have that carries on is how